All right. I'm C1,
And I'm C2.
and this is
The Christopher Show.
Today we're going to start with a classroom topic that you actually have, a classroom project you have, because we've been doing this podcast for so long. So did your professor ask you to do this, or did you take this as this is how I want to do the project?
This is how I want to do the project. I mean, he gave me the idea that, hey, I can do the project this way. Because originally, like, his example was like set up a website kind of thing on how you can help people to improve, their life to be more of a kind, caring kind of world kind of thing. And I figured
Pause there for just a moment. So what is the actual project assignment, if I can ask that?
the project assignment's basically to, create basically like a source. It could have been music that you made. It could have been any kind of way that you wanted the project to be done, but it had to have some kind of physical bearing on it, something that you can actually go to, look at, listen to, watch, whatever it is that you decide. I had some classmates do posters. I had other classmates do websites kind of thing. But it's basically just to help provide other people with ways to improve their life on, in the sense of being more of a kind of human being.
So how can someone be more kind? How can they influence the people around them then? Is it looking at how, for instance, say I'm a student, am I looking at just how I can influence the people around me, or am I looking at being able to influence something bigger, which is strangers?
Both, really. It's more about how you can improve yourself and improve those around you and just, people that are near you kind of thing. Even if they're strangers or if it's, someone you're meeting for the first time, it's, someone in your family kind of thing. How can you help improve your environment and to the most that you can kind of thing?
So with that being said, what did you choose? What did you decide you want to do today? What do you want to accomplish today with this?
So I know that like a lot of people, they don't necessarily have the best relationships with their parents. I've known people that, get into yelling arguments with their parents all the time. They, leave their house for, 4 days before they decide to finally go back kind of thing. So more so what I'm wanting to be able to discuss today is like how our relationship is in the sense that we openly communicate. It's never yelling matches between us kind of thing. It's more so, open discussion kind of thing.
So are you looking to use this to maybe show other people, hey, check out this episode. This tells you how to better communicate within your family, how to make positive communication.
Exactly. Positive communication, how to improve your home life. This way it's not a hostile environment at home. It's not always, you just going to your room and listening to your music, hanging out with your friends, not, talking with your parents kind of thing. Because, that creates a little bit of animosity when you're not having open communication.
So it's a healthy communication thing between parents and their children. That's what you're looking at, and you're trying to show by example what you've done and how others should possibly aspire to do.
Exactly.
Whether it's a parent or a child, because that relationship's two-way. It's not just the child. It's not just how the parent treats the child. It's how the child treats the parent. That is a two-way street. And I can treat you well all I want, but if you don't treat me well, then it doesn't matter. I heard a story last night, and I haven't even heard all the details yet, but this man's about 40-something years old, and he beat his mom the night before. And I'm like, bro, like what took him to that moment that he decided to physically assault his mom? And we're going to get into that on an episode about domestic violence. But when I look at that, again, that's a two-way street. So the parent could have been good to him his whole life. I know another example. The parent has gone above and beyond and done great things for their child, and their child is now rebelling and stating things that absolutely are not true.
Yeah.
So, and trying to make the parent look bad. And since I know the person, I know what the real situation is. The parent's always been a great parent. So I'm not going to speak about names or things like that because I don't want to get it into my circle. But
of course,
So going back to you want to use our example of our communication. And why do you want to do that?
Well, I know you've always gotten the compliment yourself of like how you're a great father kind of thing. Some people have told you never to be your child's best friend as well, but you're like, no, it's yes, I can be his best friend, but no, I'm also still the disciplinary kind of thing.
So that's a very good statement. I'd forgotten about that, but you're right. Along the way, people that saw me being your best friend, they didn't see the discipline side because that's stuff I do in private. What they saw was all the great times that we're having. And we really have been best friends over the years. If you look at the things we've done from Comic-Con to basketball to traveling to Europe, like all the things that we've done, we do act like best friends. And I try to keep you on that level, but there are also those moments where I become dad.
Yeah.
So it's a balance. And people had told me, they're like, you're going to pay the consequences. And I have to say this, all of their warnings, none of them vetted out. I mean, you and I have a great relationship even now. We had a great relationship when you were younger. We're still best friends even now.
Yeah.
Going to even and this really touched my heart this past week, but you know that I got the new Jeep.
Yep.
And we're standing there. And as a child, I had told you about this time when I was going through the divorce when you were about 3, where you put your hand on my back, and that just warmed my heart so much. I got that same feeling this week because when I got my Jeep, you're like, you know that I've never had a new vehicle. You know that I've always had older vehicles because I'm trying to make sure that we're taken care of and
Yep.
we're not financially strapped and stuff like that. And so this week when I'm washing dishes, you sit there and you put your hand on my shoulder after I got the Jeep, and you're like, Dad, you deserve this. This is something you deserved. I've been trying to look for it. So that speaks to our relationship and what kind of best friend you are, but also, you know, I say it all the time. That's my best friend, and I'm there for you. It's not just that you're my best friend, you're my son, your family, and it's a many-sided issue. And so when people were telling me, don't be best friends with your son, you're going to regret it. Don't be best friends with your son. I'm like, I'll be fine. I know where my son and I stand now, and I know where we're going to stand in the future. And that was because of our open communication, our positive communication that you were referencing.
Yeah.
So it's about setting the tone. And so if other people can learn from that, and they have over the years, because like you said, I've had a lot of people that have told me what a great father I am. When I posted the Jeep, and you got a Honda as well recently,
Yeah.
you got a new Civic, you're financially responsible about that. You didn't go out and get like a Dodge Charger or something
Yeah.
that's going to be
Scat
crazy
Pack, something
gas
that's what-
mileage.
Crazy on gas mileage, crazy monthly payment. I know that on our Charger Scat Packs, normally you're looking at about $1,000 a month almost.
So when I posted that picture, someone on Facebook, one of my friends that's known me since we were in Tulsa for my work when I brought you out there, he said, man, you've always been a great father. He's literally watched our relationship over the years, and there are other people that I know as well that I've inspired to be better fathers based on how I was your father. So with that, I take that's some of what you're trying to accomplish here is to
Yeah.
show, hey, this is the kind of son I am. It works two ways. It's not just that he's a
Yeah.
good father. I'm a good son.
Exactly. It goes both ways. It's me understanding that, hey, you're still the authoritarian figure, but it's also you understanding that I can try to explain myself. And, you know, there were times when I was younger kind of thing. You know, there was that one time I decided that I'd pull out my friends get C's. Why don't they, you know, and their parents don't get mad at them. Why do you like get on me about getting one C kind of thing? And, you know, do you want to talk about your position on that one?
It was the first and only time that you've used my friend's parents said, because you had never used it before, and in 10th grade you got bold enough to think that you could use it then. And I'm like, wow, you think they get smarter, and then they turn 15, and the next thing you know, they're asking 15-year-old bullshit questions. Here's the thing, though. As a parent, I knew that your rebellious years were going to come about then, and you weren't even really rebellious. It's just I know that is, as a man, when you're trying to be a man,
Yeah.
or when you're trying to change or transition from a teenager to a man. And this is where I acknowledged and I helped you to bridge that transition, because that's a hard transition. A lot of dads have a tough time letting go.
Yeah.
And for me, I was like, let me make it as smooth as possible, and you'll lash out in whatever way you do eventually, and I'll deal with that when it happens. But let me treat you like an adult, treat you like a man before you are a man, so that when you become a man, you've at least had the respect along the way and you don't have the resentment to go with it.
Yeah.
And let me say this, with my father, when I was transitioning from being a teenager to being a man, I love my dad, and my dad passed a couple of years ago. So I say this with all due respect and 100%. But I remember the last time my dad tried to hit me. I love my dad. And when we had spankings and shit like that when we were kids. Like, my dad would use a belt. We used hickory switches and things like that really, they didn't leave marks, but they hurt. But the last time my dad tried to hit me, he was frustrated. And we'll talk about this because it actually is part of your outline I saw.
Yeah.
When my dad tried to hit me, my mom and dad were going through a divorce. And we were at a rest stop. We were literally hitchhiking back from Florida to Alabama. And I had gone down there to run away, but I was running away to my aunt's. And he said, hey, don't run away. I'll go with you. He went with me. My parents got divorced while I was down there. My mom basically called him and said, you can stay, but Christopher can come back. So my dad's like, well, I'll hitchhike back and take you back. Well, when he did, there are some frustrations with a divorce. And I know because I've gone through it personally myself. And it's that you don't mean to take that out on a child, but sometimes you do. And I know that was part of my dad's frustration. As an adult, I understand it. At 15, I did not understand it. But my dad thought he would take one more swipe at me. And so he went like this. Even now, I can visualize that moment so clearly, because when he did, I caught his fist right here, or somewhere like right here. Anyway, the microphone's in the way. But anyway, I caught it right here, and I said, no, you'll never hit me again. So for me, I had to stop my dad from disciplining me in that way because my dad was physical. It was a different time back then. Now it's different, and we're going to talk about that and get into that because you have some of your outline about that. But when my dad went to swing at me, I caught his fist and I said, "You won't hit me again." My dad was 5'8". I was already 6'2" by then, and I'm sure he was like, "What the hell just happened?" So, and I love my dad, so I say this with all the love in the world, and I mean, my dad taught me to be the man that I am.
Yeah.
And I don't have any resentment about any of that. I love who I am, and I love therefore by extension, I know that what he did made me the man that I am today. Yeah. But that was the way I transitioned to manhood. The way you transitioned to manhood was different than the way I transitioned. It's different times. I wasn't hitting you.
Yeah, you hit me one time when I was, I think, what was I, 3, because I found
You were like 1.5.
Oh, I was 1.5. Okay.
Oh, you were still in diapers. Actually, no, you were out of diapers by then. Thankfully. You were on the cusp. But anyway, go ahead.
But basically, I had found a socket, what is it, an electrical socket, and I decided to find a fork and try and plug it into the socket, see what happens.
So your mom and I had literally put the frickin' covers on every socket except one. We had somehow missed one. You find the one that is uncovered. You're like, I wonder what this fork does. And you're literally about to put it in when I catch you. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't even hit you before this point. But I've never been in that moment of being concerned or scared. I didn't even hit you hard. I grabbed your hand and literally did nothing more than that and said, no. But the way I said no was my dad voice that we'll speak about in a little bit. And you looked at me and you bawled so hard. It was like I had just killed you. Like, my dad just hit. Like, I don't even know what you were thinking, but you literally were like, it was like, he's never touched me like that. Why did he hit me like that? Like,
yeah.
So yeah, it was the last time I spanked you. And it was the only time I spanked you. But after that, I used my words and timeouts and things like that, and we figured it out.
The timeouts were not your standard, spoiled kid of just go to your bedroom. It started out that way at young age kind of thing because I didn't, know better kind of thing. But then I started to sleep in when I was supposed to be learning a lesson, and you changed that to first just me standing against the wall, then me with my arms against the wall.
No, your arms up in the air.
Well, yeah.
Actually, no, you did have your arms against the wall initially because you would lean them even though you were standing. And I'm like, all right, that's fine, whatever.
And then it eventually...
And then I'm like, take them off the wall. So...
Yeah, hands up. And then it transitioned to with one leg in the air pretty much, like a flamingo pretty much, on how I would hold my leg.
And now let me say this. So I did transition and evolve it over the years. Initially, it was go to your room, but you were falling asleep. And I'm like, well, he's missing the lesson. Even then, though, even when you were falling asleep and missing the lesson, I didn't let you miss the whole lesson. And you're going to talk about teachable moments in a moment in your outline, I know. Mm-hmm. But I would basically take you and talk to you after I woke your ass up. And I'd be like, hey, yo, here's why you can't do what you did. I still love you, but here's why you can't do it. And you were you understood, and I'm not saying you understood on like an adult level, but you understood on a kid level, and so you're like, okay, that's fine. And so over the years, I did evolve it because initially you were going to sleep. I'm like, all right, let's stop that. So you stood up. Then you got to where you were standing up, and it was only like 5 minutes. It wasn't even like a long time. It was like quick and done, but I would talk to you the whole time. Here's the thing. I didn't just have you do the timeout. I lectured you while you were doing the timeout. And I can say lectured, but at the same time, it's also I was explaining the situation from a perspective you may not have understood.
Exactly. And that's where it's more of a teachable moment rather than just, hey, don't do that. You're giving me an explanation as to why what I did was wrong rather than just saying, hey, that's not right. Most people, I'm not don't mean to generalize, but I mean, like, most people tend to just, hey, I'm the authoritarian figure. What I say goes. So if you don't listen to me, now you're in trouble.
Well, that, and then they stand them against the wall. And there are things that I did after to make sure that it was teachable. But it's the hug, it's the acknowledgement that you're still a person.
Yeah.
It's the explanation so you don't do it again. That saved me a lot of time. Trust me, when I explained why you don't do what you did, you got it. You were like, okay, so I'm not supposed to do that. But it's like I said, it evolved from you laying on the bed to you standing up with both arms in the air to finally you standing up with both arms in the air and one leg. And that was at 5 minutes. And then as you got older, you were 6, 7, 8. And I'm not going to tell people like how many minutes they should let someone stand, but then I'd make it 6 minutes, then 7 minutes, then 8 minutes. all the way up to I got to about 15 minutes by the time you were 8 or 9.
Yeah, and you'd let me switch legs at least too, which made it a little bit less painful, because if it was just 1 minute or
15
one leg
minutes.
for 15 minutes, yeah, that's gonna eventually just start to hurt.
Well, I believe in balance, so probably not the kind of balance that you want. But no, part of the reason is because I did know, and so every minute I was very aware. I didn't just tell you. Here's what happens with some people: they punish their kid, and they literally send them away to be punished, and then they dismiss. They're gone. They're absent. For me, I wasn't absent. I was literally standing there. You were standing near me, and so I'm watching you, and I'm like, all right, switch legs. All right, switch legs. I'm not trying to torture the hell out of you, but I am trying to make a point.
Yeah.
And so with a lot of parents, they literally just, they're like, oh, you're on punishment. You're going to go do this. And I'm like, no, not me. I'm going to punish you for the 10 to 15 minutes.
Or they punish you by taking away your phone now, or taking away your toy, kind of thing. That, yeah, it kind of sends a message, but not nearly as much of, hey, here's why what you did was wrong.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Um,
And so those 15 minutes, I would be lecturing you. And one of the funny things that I want to say is that in later years, as you got older, or even now, we make the joke, you're like, I wish you had just beaten me. Like, that stuff was, because I know how I am. I talk a lot. I mean,
yeah.
as evidenced by having a fucking podcast, right? As evidenced by having a podcast. I'm trying to clean up my language, so I apologize. But anyway, as evidenced by having a podcast, I talk a lot.
Yeah.
And so imagine this for 15 minutes about why what you did was wrong, what the ramifications were of that, and breaking it down. And that was me during your childhood.
Yeah, there was even one time where it was me and my my best friend at the time and his little brother that were staying over at the house. We would always have it like one weekend I'd spend it theirs, the next day that they'd spend it with us. And there was one day that the little brother just kept being loud, kind of thing, and he was still young. He was younger than both of us.
He was, I think, 2 years behind you guys.
I think so, 2 or 3. And all 3 of us originally were being loud, and then you gave us all a timeout, the same exact timeout. You gave them the same timeout you gave me, pretty much.
I don't think they had to hold their hands up though, because I don't think they were big on. I can't remember.
I don't remember that part, but you gave them pretty much the same timeout I had, and then
I don't think you were holding your hands up in the air by then either, because it was only 5 or 6. So I think that was just standing against the wall.
Oh, okay. Was it? No, it had to be older. I think I was like 7 or 8.
It may have been 7. It may have been 7 or 8.
Yeah.
So,
But
anyway, go ahead.
no, so then we go back to playing, and we end up getting loud again, and we get punished again. It's the second time it's happened now. We get the same punishment. Go back to playing.
Actually, no. The second time is when I did it. The first.
Oh,
time,
I thought it was the
the
3
first
set.
time I punished all 3 of you. And here's the thing: we can say punished, but it was literally like a quick 5 minutes and done. And I had told the parents of the other person, I said of the kids, I said, hey, if he comes over there, I mean, the rules are the rules. If he does something wrong, make sure you know.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like it was a hard one. Like you said, I always talk to you guys, and I was talking to all 3 of you at that time about why we needed,
Yeah, because you
use
were
our
working,
inside voice.
Yeah, you were working from home. You had conference calls, kind of thing. We had to be quiet.
So yeah, it was the second time. I'll let you finish telling the story.
And then the second time, though, it's just the little brother that ends up being loud. Like me and my friend, we learned our lesson real quick. We're like, all right, keep it quiet. And then he ends up being loud, though. And you come back in, you sit them on the couch, both of them, and give me a timeout and make them watch me get a timeout.
So it was psychological. What I did is basically, I'm like, well, if all 3 of them being punished together didn't do anything, 2 of them watching their friend, their best friend, because they became family. Like those kids were family to us. And so I sat them on the couch and had them watch you do the intense timeout. Like the initial timeout was just like standing there. But when they sat down, I'm like, put your hands in the air. All right. And then we talked about it the whole time. They got the point, so much so that he still mentions it to this day. He's like, oh, yeah. I still remember that time you sat us on the couch and made us watch our friend get a timeout for stuff we did. And I'm like, it is what it is. So if you can't get people to respond, let's break them apart and,
Yep.
So divide and conquer.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and again, those kids became family. So it was very much it was another approach. And I didn't see that on the outline. So I actually liked that we brought that up, because that was a good, it was a teachable moment. Let's actually go to teachable moments, since that was part of your outline.
Yeah.
I'll let you start on that, but what do you see as a benefit of teachable moments?
I mean, a benefit of teachable moments is basically just getting to kind of like enlighten your child on, hey, this is what's going on. this is why it's not okay. We've talked about it a little bit, earlier, but it's more of like being able to teach them, just about anything really. I mean, back when I was younger, we used to have the rule when we were in the car, no phones allowed. We'd put them into the, not the glove compartment, but the center console.
Center console.
And it was more so that we could communicate with each other. We could talk about, whatever we wanted to talk about. I know growing up, we used to read the Bible on the way to school.
Oh man, we got up to Isaiah. I wish we would finish that project in some point, and maybe when I'm on my deathbed, we can get back to it. You can read the second half of the Bible.
Yeah.
But I think we're up to about Isaiah chapter 55, in case you ever wonder.
Okay. I'll come back to this video when that happens.
So go ahead. But you're right. I used to say put the phones away, and then I would have you read the Bible. Wasn't it we read the Bible?
Yeah.
You read the Bible to me, and we discussed it. So I would have you read a chapter at a time. And this is on the way to games. This is on the way to school. This is on the way to, like, over the course of time, we were reading the Bible very regularly. And I miss those days because they're really sweet, because we got to explore religion, explore values, standards, morals, etc.
Yeah.
And discuss them, because you would read and then we would discuss what that meant, not just to me, but what it meant to you or what you thought it meant.
Yeah, you'd ask me first, and then you'd explain what the meaning behind the message was really about. Like,
Yeah.
I know I'd get like a general idea, but then you would go more in depth about it.
Yeah.
And it comes back to that communication kind of thing of being able to speak with, your child kind of thing about just about anything. On the trips back up to, LA, Vegas, wherever we'd end up going for basketball tournaments, we'd end up listening to comedy on the way up there.
Yeah.
It was, again, another bonding moment for us to be able to, laugh at those and then be able to talk about them again later.
Teachable moments. And so you're correct. And those are teachable moments that I had in that respect, but there are other teachable moments, and let's talk about those. Not every moment's teachable. Sometimes a kid's just asking a question to ask a question. But
My what if questions.
so for those teachable moments, those where I'm actively teaching you, there are other ones that happen where they become teachable moments because of what happened. For instance, you scoring for the other team and me taking you aside and telling you, hey, if you want to quit, you can quit now, and explaining to you, and then letting you come to your own conclusion about what you wanted to do. Those are teachable moments as well, and those are moments that you capture for that moment. They're so strong that one you still remember to this day. It's been 10 years.
Yeah.
And you still remember sitting there at Miramar College on the sidelines after the other team won by 2, and your mom's coming this way. And I like the kind of relationship your mom and I had over the years, because she understood that sometimes I was taking time and effort for a very specific reason. And so as she's coming there, she wants to hug you and comfort you. And instead of hugging and comforting you, I say, one moment. And then I hammer home the point.
Yep.
I'm like, you scored and made the other team win, didn't you? I mean, you made the bucket for them on their side of the court. And I said, it hurts right now, doesn't it? It sucks right now, doesn't it? And I went in, because in that moment, and these are the teachable moments. When it hurts the most, that is the most teachable. This isn't the only moment, and I'll mention another one in a minute that I know you'll remember. But I took as much of an opportunity as I could to get the point across that just because it hurts, it doesn't mean you give up. It doesn't mean you quit. That was in a playoff game. So I took that moment to make it as teachable as possible. Another moment that I took to make very teachable, that I'm sure you'll remember, I had Christian dunking on you and scoring on you left and right. And it was tough. It was probably about 11th grade or so. It was when you had...
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, that was tough, because you're really good at basketball. But I was like, hey, just so you know, as good as you are, there's still always someone better, and there's still someone that's always working when you're not working. And you were working all the time.
Yeah.
But I wanted you to understand that whatever you want in life when you become an adult, and this was why this is teachable, whatever you want in life when you become an adult, there's always going to be someone better than you. But you can either stop working and get beaten, or you can keep working and get on their level and maybe even beat them.
Yep.
So Christian had schooled you that day. Like, I'm not even going to deny it, dude. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, there was also, I still remember this one time when we were still at the 24 in Santee. But I had, gone in, we'd gone to the gym there kind of thing. I was going to practice my basketball. You were going to lift weights. And I was shooting free throws, and I think I went like 9 for like 80 or 50 or something like that. And I just like felt like crap, or I can't remember exactly what it was. And then I tried doing layups, and I couldn't make a layup to save my life at the time. And I just remember like, dude, this is not my day kind of thing. And coming out to you and like being like, hey, I'm just not doing well today.
yeah, you're going to have bad days along the line to success.
And that's exactly what you kind of taught me that day, was like, hey, you're going to have bad days. It's cool. We'll just, chill out today and go back at it tomorrow.
Yeah, and it happens. And because of that, by the time you got to your senior year, you were able to do as well as you did in basketball. So,
Yeah.
So teachable moments. What else did you have on there that you wanted to discuss?
how you never took like anger out on me. Like, yeah, you get hangry sometimes,
Oh yeah,
but
yeah. You knew when I was getting hangry.
yeah, but you never like, took external anger, something at work, something that happened in your personal life. You never took that out on me as a child. Like even, back to the divorce kind of thing, you never took that out on me.
So I was very self-aware, and not a lot of people are. Some people wind up being angry and not knowing why they're angry. I think it had something to do with where I worked and all of the knowledge they were giving us, because back then we went through ethics training and all this other stuff, because that was a company that had gone, they had gone bankrupt is what wound up happening. And so when we came out of bankruptcy, they gave us a lot of ethics training. Well, I've got to guess that that's probably what attributed to this, but you're right. I didn't take my anger out on you. I didn't take my other stuff out on you as far as the stuff with your mom, because I knew that you weren't the source of that hurt. And if I did overreact, the other thing that I was quick to do was to apologize and say, hey, that's not you, that's me.
Yep.
And I wasn't.
You would admit when you were in the wrong.
Yeah, I clearly admitted when I was wrong. I was like, hey, you know what? I was wrong. Dad's wrong. I'm really sorry about that. That's not you. That's me. And then I would own those feelings.
Yeah, you would own up to it.
So I think that's setting an example for you, so that hopefully as an adult you can acknowledge and do the same at some point. And that's what you always want to be, is you want to be better so that your kids are better when they get older. Mm-hmm. So the other thing about that is the two simple words, I'm sorry.
Yeah, those can, they don't solve every issue. They don't solve every problem that you're going to have, but they do make a lot of things feel better at the very least. Like, hey, I'm remorseful. I'm sorry that I did what I did.
Well, and so many people are unwilling to apologize that when you do apologize, it stands out.
Yeah.
And it acknowledges the other person's feelings. Like, I had an ex-girlfriend that taught me this. I mean, this is where I learned it. I don't think she understood the magnitude of what she was saying at the time, but she said, sometimes I'm sorry is enough.
Yeah.
And she said, but not enough people say it. And so I took that to heart, and I'm like, she's so right. Like, even though she didn't realize the magnitude of the way I was taking it, I said, she's so right. So many people don't say I'm sorry, that sometimes it doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't resolve the problem. But what it does is it says, hey, I acknowledge that I did something wrong and I am sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and it's just how two simple words can really, you're taking ownership of what you did and you're letting them know how you feel about what you did.
I agree with that 100%. And ownership is a big part of it. So I think that pretty much gets us toward the end of your outline. Do you have other things, or?
No, that's mostly it.
So as we wrap this up, I mean, in conclusion, what would you say that you want people to get from this?
Have open communication. If you're on the child side, have open communication with your parents. If you have issues that are going on in your personal life, feel free to talk to them, because your parent shouldn't be against you. They should be willing to help you and give you advice that they think would benefit you in the situation that you're in. And from a parental side,
well, I think, to your point there, from a parental side, we are trying to give you advice from our experience. And sometimes we're trying to shortcut the process for you so that you don't have to hurt yourself in order to learn the experiences that we have.
Yeah.
So from a parental communication side, I would say, like we said throughout the course of this episode, basically make sure that you're willing to admit that you're wrong, apologize. It doesn't mean that you're always going to say I'm wrong, but, be humble about it a little bit, and then take the teachable moments. Make sure that when you have experience that can shortcut things for your child, you take those opportunities. And then I think one of the biggest things that I like about this episode was put your phones down, be present. I used to say that to you all the time. That was my big phrase.
Yep.
Put your phone down, be present.
now I do it to you when I'm driving.
So, yeah, you do. And that's good though. And that's what you ultimately want, is for someone to go, hey, be present.
Yeah.
So
we spend too much time on our phones nowadays in general. The attention span of people is dwindling. It's no longer conversations between people. It's more of, hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. Hey, look at this.
As evidenced by TikTok and Instagram. I mean, you guys have TikTok and you're doing that, and we have Instagram. My generation has Instagram.
Or Facebook.
So, Facebook if you're grandma. Don't start bringing grandma into this. I'm kidding. All right. So anyway, thank you for listening today. Go ahead.
We'll be adding some links down below as well to also emphasize, different courses, or not courses necessarily, but resources that you can use, different blogs of how other people have done it, and what to do and what not to do from the parental side, as well as I'll try and find some from the children's side as well, of how to address themselves and how to explain themselves in a respectful manner toward their parents.
Thank you for listening today, and thank you to Pixel Studios for giving us the space and the time to do this.
This is C2.
And C1.
And this is The Christopher Show.